Byron looked directly into Ayla's face, feeling a little afraid. The two blue eyes that shone behind the mirror looked too much like those of an old friend who had always made him feel inferior since childhood. For the first time since he kidnapped her and raised her as an assassin, Byron began to wonder if the plan was too risky. No, it is too late to repent. There is only one step left. Ayla was still his faithful hunting dog. Even if he refused to obey his master, even that was for him. So everything would be fine. Byron took solace in that. You're right. But this father wishes you had killed that child first. The order was very important. The moment Roderick died, he would whisper in his ear, "Your daughter Ayla killed your son and you." I couldn't give up that emotion. I live only for you, father, so I must do as you say. But still, could you listen to me just this once? Like you said, Noah Weishafen is a weak kid. I could kill him at any moment. On that glorious day when you come here. But at Ayla's next words, Byron sank into deep sadness. He was right. As a newborn, Noah was a life that could be extinguished at any moment, and Roderick was even harder to kill. Noah Weishafen's existence was terribly odious, but if eliminating him delayed revenge against Roderick, wouldn't that be putting the cart before the horse? Yeah. Let's do what you say. And Byron gave up. It was incredibly humiliating to be convinced by the enemy's daughter and change one's mind, but there was nothing wrong with what she said. Really? Yes, it's true. I guess there's nothing more to say. Then I'll go in. Byron, with a tremendous sense of defeat, quickly hung up the call, although he could not determine the exact cause. It was Ayla's victory. Why do you go to so much trouble to go out? It's not like I'm never going to see them again. That's right. And I'll be back soon anyway. It was the day Isidore's family returned to the Timor Republic. As the whole family came out to see him off, Isidore, who was feeling uncomfortable for no reason, grumbled and said, and Rachel added with a smile from beside him. As soon as he graduated from the academy, he decided to return to the Palace Empire and settle down. And beside him, Michelle lowered her head with a sullen expression. He didn't seem particularly happy, but considering the big fight he'd had with his sister a few days earlier, there was still a sense of mutual respect. The reason Michelle and Rachel argued was because Rachel said she didn't want to return to the Timor Republic and wanted to live in the Empire. Michelle was angry and asked if it was right to abandon her family, her studies, and her career as a magician to go live abroad for a lover she had just met. But Rachel replied that it was not because of her lover, a young teacher, and that since she was little she had dreamed of living in a prosperous place like the Palace Empire. Although they were sisters who always argued, this fight was different from the previous ones, and it turned into a serious argument that made them wonder if they could get hurt if they continued like this. It was similar to the time Isidore and Ophelia had a big fight and didn't even contact each other for several years. But fortunately, thanks to Ophelia, Isidore, and Roderick, who mediated between them, they had now reached a provisional agreement to understand each other. The Palace Empire was a place where mages were valued, and thanks to them they were able to live as mages there and receive proper treatment. So Rachel decided to return to her hometown, graduate from the academy, and come to the Empire to become a mage under the Duke of Weishafen. Bye, Uncle. See you later. And you too, cousins. Ayla greeted her uncle, the benefactor who had helped her break her curse, warmly. There were so many people watching that she couldn't express her gratitude directly, but Isidore seemed to read her feelings and smiled brightly, gently stroking Ayla's head. Yes, take care of yourself. I hope you achieve all your dreams. I will be cheering you on from afar. Thank you. After she and Isidore exchanged meaningful greetings, Rachel, who had been waiting her turn at her side, smiled and gently patted Ayla on the shoulder. Soon we will live together in a house, so let's get to know each other better. But after all, we are your only cousins. Yes, Rachel. Ayla nodded. She and Rachel had different personalities, but she felt like they could become very close cousins if they got closer. Well, then I should go now. If I continue like this, I'll end up spending the night on the road. Bye-bye. I will contact you. Noah too. Goodbye, Uncle. As Isidore and his daughters climbed into the carriage, Ophelia took Noah's small hand, which she held in her arms, and shook it vigorously in greeting. After a while, the carriage completely disappeared from sight. He really left. Ophelia opened her mouth in a sad voice. He had gotten used to having his brother and nieces around, but now that they were all gone, he felt a cold wind blowing through my empty chest. It was always busy at mealtimes, so it felt like home, but now it's getting quiet. Roderick also looked towards where the carriage had gone with a slightly disappointed expression on his face and put his arm around his wife's shoulder. So we go in now? After saying goodbye, the family entered. Although she didn't know where they were sitting, she was sure their seat would be marked. Although only 3 people had left, the house felt quieter than usual. Ayla was also feeling a little lonely as she walked to her room. Noah, who had been in his babysitter's arms, began to whimper and kick. He was throwing a tantrum, begging to be put down. Oh, why is the young master like this? When the babysitter panicked and put him down to the ground, Noah approached Ayla, hand in hand with the babysitter. It seems like you want to play with your older sister. Ophelia smiled warmly at the sight and said, Noah has been following her a lot lately. As Ayla fidgeted, not knowing what to make of her younger brother's adorable appearance, Laura, who had been silently listening to the conversation from the side, joined in with a worried expression. Excuse me, miss. You have an etiquette class soon, so you need to prepare. That's how it is. Noah. I'm sorry I couldn't play with you. Ayla apologized to her brother, grabbing the hem of her skirt that was falling down. Ophelia smiled and patted her husband's ribs. Can't we postpone etiquette class for a bit? Right, Roderick? Clear. I'll be sure to explain it to the instructor, so you can play with Noah for a bit, Ayla. At the couple's words, Laura had to press her lips together to avoid disfigurement. He already felt bad finding out that Ayla had convinced Byron to postpone killing Noah, but watching her argue with the person he was supposed to kill was just as irritating. Why do you rebel if you've never done it? Until then, Ayla had been an unapologetic child, obediently following Byron's orders and those of her and her mother. But lately, she kept contradicting and objecting to his words, and even ended up convincing Byron to revoke his orders. I didn't understand what the hell was going on. Finally, Ayla took Noah's hand and headed to the playroom with him. Seeing her sitting next to her little brother, rocking his favorite rattle, was enough to make Laura's heart break with laughter. Miss, what are you thinking about? Why is he so fond of someone he should kill? Laura, unable to take it anymore, returned to Ayla's room and whispered so softly that only Ayla could hear, I'm not giving him affection. He's asking me to play with him. How can I refuse in this situation? Ayla shrugged and responded. He was trying to explain that he had no desire to play with Noah, but his tone was a little sarcastic. If you didn't want him, why did you delay killing him, even contradicting the master's wishes? I was only expressing my opinion for my father. He accepted it because he believed I was right. So you're saying his judgment was wrong? Laura asked harshly, as if she still couldn't accept it, but when Ayla tripped Byron, he couldn't respond and had no choice but to remain silent. Because he couldn't interfere with something that Byron had given him permission to do. Should I give you my seat? Lisa intervened in a strange voice. She was embarrassed that Laura and Ayla, who were in the same room, were whispering as if they were sharing a secret. But you don't have to do that. Ayla smiled widely and said, declaring that she had no intention of continuing to discuss this with Laura. This made Laura snort, with an air of deep resentment. The etiquette teacher will be arriving soon, so I have to make sure I review first. I'm already late because I'm playing with Noah, so I'll feel less guilty if I at least review well. Ayla stood up and held out her hand to Lisa. Since she had learned to dance for the banquet last time, she asked Lisa to play the male role.